Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, 3 Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading 3 Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm so happy to have Dave Elleray with me today. After years of struggling with anger, depression, and drinking, Dave's life was transformed in a single moment. He became aware of a profound simplicity and gained insight into the innocent misunderstanding that creates all mental suffering. Unsurprisingly, he made the decision to focus on helping others to uncover their own true mental health, and his journey since then has been joyful and fascinating. He has since traveled widely, giving talks and working closely with a wide range of people in diverse settings. Welcome, Dave. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to hear all about your story and what led you to the principles, because you do amazing work in the world, and I'd love to hear all about that as well. But tell me how you first came across the principles.
Well, first of all, Del, thanks for thinking of us, and thanks for allowing us to come and speak. I love this conversation. And it's so beautiful that this conversation is going out into the world, and you're doing such amazing work. I'm thankful there are people in this world who are doing such beautiful work. So thank you, Del. Thanks for asking me. Well, I've spent a lot of my life in suffering, as I think many people have. I think that's part of this great cosmic game. I've spent time in prison for violence. Spent a lot of time doing drugs and drinking. I've had a lot of depression in my life, a lot of anger, a lot of anxieties, a lot of worry. I was a hard man. I was one of those kids at school that I wasn't big. I was a late developer. And I always looked up to the bigger lads because I thought they were confident, they were safe. And I remember being, as a kid, like probably 11, 12, 13, thinking, I want big shoulders, I want big arms, I want to be hard. And that's what I set about becoming. I set about becoming a hard man. And I got my big shoulders. I went to the gym and I got my big shoulders and I got my big arms and I got this 15.5 stone physique. And I used it to intimidate my way through life and to fight and to get what I wanted. I stayed like that till I was 33 years old. Bloody idiot. And it was all born of insecurity. I realise now when I look back with a very different perspective on life, that I used to really look up to hard men because I thought they were confident. And I see now, if anybody's having to be hard in this world, they're missing the essence of life. They're so wrapped up in an illusion that is so convincing. I get it, I've done it. I can still fall into it. But a hard man isn't a confident man. Anybody who's having to go around throwing the weight around is an insecure human being, and I was very fearful. And I've since had the privilege to go into prisons and speak about this because I went to prison myself. I know there's some beautiful people stuck inside that system. I got to meet some amazing people. I've got to share that story with many people, and I've sat there with tattooed faced lads, gang members, spoken about that, for them just to burst into tears and say, you're me. It's me. Insecurity. And so yeah, it was a mad existence before coming across the principles. I failed my college course before years. I love wildlife. I love nature. I always have. I failed my college course, and in 6 months I'm in prison. I thought my life was over. So I became a tree surgeon, and I got out. Got given a hand up by an amazing man. long story short, I did that for 17 years. Was good at it. But I always knew in my heart it wasn't what I was going to do with my life. So I never fully loved it. And it was in 2012, 2011, 2012, I had a psychological breakdown. And it was during this psychological breakdown that I suppose I could say I could feel my heart opening. I had an affair, was married, beautiful wife. She's one of my best friends to this day. I had an affair, and yeah, my life got really messy. I ended up living on my own. My family disowned me, and I was just on my own. I was lost. And there were two instances that I really feel like changed my life. And the first one was I'd gone mountain running, fell running. Used to do a lot of fell running. Just love keeping fit. I used to. It's terrible, isn't it? Used to do a lot of mountain running. I was up west coast of Scotland, in a spot called Torridon. I was fell running up there with some mates, and it snowed too much, so the lads were like, "We're getting off the mountain." I was depressed, and this is the most alive I'd felt, because I didn't care whether we lived or died, or whether I lived or died at this point. And I remember we crossed two fresh avalanches, and the lads were like, "Right," we were crawling through. It was ridiculous. We're getting off this mountain. So we went down the pub. Long story short, Dave being a dickhead, didn't take him long before I got into a big scrap and shut the pub down. And I decided that in the pissed up stupidity, that was me saying I wasn't going to swear, sorry. Stupidity. I set off walking home, 400 miles. Fuck you, lads, I'm going home. And it was on this walk where I was talking about it today, funnily enough. I had an experience that to this day, I can't begin to describe. I was at my wit's end, lowest of the lows. I was dressed in a hoodie. It was snowing. And I was so pissed, it was ridiculous. And I seem to remember I went for a piss, and I fell down a banking. And it was in that moment, I think, where something revealed itself. Not like that. Like something revealed itself within this life, the livingness of life. I can distinctly remember it. I remember it perfectly. In that place, there was no drunkenness. Total lucidity. But there wasn't a world, and there wasn't my body. There was, I can't tell you if it was light, but it was perfect. And the only words I could really use to describe it were like being drenched or saturated in the most unconditional, perfect, understanding, love, beauty, phenomenal perfection. And it was the most amazing thing that ever happened to me in my life. And it was beautiful. And I'm so thankful for it. I don't know how long it lasted, seconds, I don't know. And when I came round, my body wasn't down the banking. It was in the middle of the road. Sat down and I was screaming, "Don't leave me, don't leave me, please don't leave me." And long story short, I could ask this space for things, and things would come into the world for me. Things beyond possibility, or what you would say would be possibility. What's the odds? Ridiculous odds. It would come into being. And I found that wasn't the thing that changed my life. It opened my mind. I was on it then. I was like, there is something phenomenal about this life, and I have to find out what that is. I have to find out. I was never spiritual. I was a dickhead. And within a couple of weeks, I was introduced to a lady. A lady phoned me up to go and look at a tree. I went round there, and she was a therapist had seen 6 months before. The lady was called Sue. Long story short, there wasn't a tree in the garden when I got there, and I was thoroughly pissed off. I was cold, I was wet, had a hard day. And she sat me down, she said, look, I need to sit down. She just said, if I told you why I had to get you, you wouldn't have come, would you? I said, I don't know, why have you got me here? She said, I've been told I need to teach you something. I said, who's told you what? She said, the universe. I was like, oh, I agreed to listen to her, and she introduced me to Sydney Banks. It took me 9 weeks before I really saw the magnitude of Sid Banks's message, and it was just on a walk. I listened to Sid. There was only 3 little videos on YouTube at the time, 2013 it was. 3 little videos on YouTube, and I just remember Sue ringing me up saying, you've never done anything I've asked you. You've never helped yourself. You've just taken from me. She was right. I had. So I sat down this morning, I was going to go to work. I was suicidal at this point in my life. I was planning my own. I'm out. When the time's right, I'm out of it. I've had enough of this shit. And I watched Sid. And then I decided I was going to have the morning off work, and I picked up Rusty, my little dog, and we jumped in my truck and we went for a drive. And as I was driving, I just got this urge to pull over on the side of the road, and I fell, Potter fell, which is just up the road from me. I live in the Lake District in the UK. And I got out of the car and I just stood still. And as I stood still, a jackdaw flew over me, a crow. It looked at me, and I looked at it, and that was it. It was like, in that moment, again, this space opened up again. And it was this time, it was more earthbound. The other one didn't feel quite earthbound. It felt beyond it. This one was earthbound. It was more practical. It was down to earth. It was the realization that everything is thought, as Sid had spoken about. Reality is an illusion of something we call mind. I don't know what mind is. I don't know what thought is. It's a state of consciousness. It's a spirit. It's a spirit thing. Reality is a dream state. I could see it clearly. It was like, there you go, Dave. This is reality. There's bits I remember whereby I was a woodland. And I've got memories of this woodland. And it's only since I've been back a couple of times like this last couple of years that I've realised where this woodland is. This woodland that I was about 2 miles away. I can see it. But I was there. In it. That changed my life. That healed my soul. It healed my body. I no longer was a hard man. I didn't have hate for anybody. I just had love for myself, who was the most terrifying human being I'd ever met. I was terrified of me. I was a dickhead. I was a liability. I was on my way back to prison. And all of a sudden I found love. And that love has stayed with me since that day. I have my ups and downs. I'm a human being and I have my ins and outs. But that love has stayed with me since that moment. It changed my life, and I'm eternally thankful to have come across Sid's message.
Wow. Really brought tears to my eyes, for sure.
Oh, don't worry.
That's so beautiful. And I love what you share. I mean, underneath every tough guy out there, tough woman, whatever it is somebody that feels very fragile and very scared.
Correct.
And I'm just so incredibly grateful that you saw what you saw, so that you can do the amazing work that you do. I mean,
Me too.
Yeah, just it's all perfectly divinely orchestrated, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
It's all perfect.
it is. I know I went through some challenges as a child, but I love it all. I'm grateful for it all. I'm grateful for where it brought me. Because again, I can be in service to others, and that is the biggest gift in the world.
You be a service to yourself, and then you can be of service to others.
Exactly. Yeah, you can be that beacon of light and hope, like you said in the prison, when a young boy can look at you and say, "Oh my God, you're me." And
That's right. Yeah.
So, gosh, I'm really, really, really touched. My brain is just, I could sit and listen to you all day. That's it. Just tell me more. Tell me how I know you've done incredible work. You've been to Nepal, you've been to South Africa. How did you, and I know you work in the UK, but how did you start to branch out like that and take this understanding into places that would never have heard of it once you went there?
One of the first things that I wanted to do was I wanted to go into the prison system. And nobody in the UK was sharing the principles in the prison at the time, so there was nobody I could kind of go in with. That thing that happened, the initial thing that happened in Scotland, I asked it, please send me somebody to get into working with prisoners, because I sent off all these letters and I never heard anything back. And I was so disheartened. I was like, oh, come on. So I asked, send me somebody to working with prisoners. 10 days later, somebody turns up lost at my drive gates. I gave her a lift. And on the way, giving her a lift, this little voice came in me and said, ask her what she does for a living. Do you mind me asking what you do for a living? She said, no, should have just taken a managerial role with a charity that works with the well-being of offenders. I was like, I knew it. She said, what do you mean you knew it? I said, I need to buy you a drink. Let me buy you a drink. So I bought her a drink and I got a job. So I got to go into the prisons and start sharing the principles. And from that, I started a community group. And I became really good friends with Rudy and Jenny. And they went out because of a lady named Mahima. They were asked to go out to Nepal, and Rudy and Jen said, would you come out? Yeah. Love to. We got funding and went out to Nepal. And from there, we all became really good friends. And Jen and I became really good friends. Long story, another story. But then we went out to South Africa, and we ended up doing a lot of work out in South Africa and working in townships. And yeah, it was one of these things where once it started, it just gathered momentum and life took off. And if there's one thing I know about life, is it will keep you on your toes. It was on one of these trips where my life changed again, and I fell in love with somebody who ideally, I suppose you could say, it's not ideal you fall in love with your friend's wife, but it happened. And life got very messy again, completely unpredictable again, and all thrown up in the air again. And it was a very difficult time, and we made it through it, and we came through it, and we all managed to stay friends, which I think is a beautiful thing about the principles. Is this does not make you immune to life. This is not an anesthetic to life. Principles are not an anesthetic. The principles are the description of the nature of life. And when you become aware of it, it's not so much so you can control it, it's so you can live it. The control is the thing that creates the friction in life, which is the thing that creates the suffering. Everybody's trying to control life. You don't get to choose who you fall in love with and when. And you don't get to choose who you fall out of love with and when. If we could choose, if we could control, life would be so simple. But it's not. It's a dynamic thing. Where anything can happen. Anything can happen. And we become afraid of that. We become afraid of this anything can happen. Because we are mistaken by our illusion of reality. We're confused by our illusion of reality. We think our reality is an objective, substantial thing, our life. That first experience I told you about was such an eye-opener, because I knew that what that was everything and everybody. Everybody is that pure, undivine love. Sorry, pure divine love, not undivine. The pure divine love. Everybody is that. Whether they like it or not, whether they know it or not, everybody is. Every single politician, every single world leader, every single corrupt banker, they're all that. We're all the same thing. Dancing this dance of life. Each of us is like an aspect of one thing, thinking it's a separate thing to that divine love. Lost in fear. Fear is entirely created within the illusion of life. Anybody who finds themselves finds love. There is not a single prophet or awoken human being who doesn't speak that love is that. That what everybody's looking for ultimately is simply love. And you know it when you fall in love with somebody, you feel one, you feel the connection, you are recognizing yourself. That's why when people fall in love, the two become one. You feel connection, because that's our truest nature. That's the truest. I don't even really like the word connection, because connection suggests that it takes two things to connect something, but it's just words.
I love what you said. It's it's so funny, because the principles for me, it is, like you said, it's not something to sort of survive life and actually, work life. It is such a, when you understand how the system works, you can show up to life more fully, and more fearless. So you have that resilience. You know that safety net is there. I mean, I was very fearful, and my life was so contracted when I was living in fear.
Yes.
And I learned not to sort of take that seriously. That was just my human personal thinking. I just sort of expanded. I mean, I completely and utterly changed, like you. I wasn't, let me say, I wasn't a hard girl, as in beat people up, but I was closed off and scared and brittle and withdrawn. And now it's just like I show up so differently.
It's brilliant. It's so simple.
Yeah.
I know why you do this, Del. I often say, the principles they're gonna collapse the banking system. When people wake up to the principles, it's going to collapse the banking system. It's going to collapse the NHS. It's going to collapse the armed forces. It's going to collapse the police. It's going to collapse the government. It's going to collapse every single shop. Because everybody wants to become three principles facilitators when they come across it. It's like the moment somebody comes across it, they just want to, I want to share this. This is what I want to do. I found it. I found what I've always been looking for. And it's so obvious and it's so simple. And now I feel this love within myself. I want to share this love with everybody. I think Jesus likened it. He spoke about it. I'm not a religious man, but I've got deep respect for Jesus Christ. He spoke about it as, I've lit the fire and now I'm tending to the fire. The fire is started, and it ignites with each person that lights up, who then lights up the next person, shares the message and lights up the next person until the whole world's on fire with love. That is an absolute possibility within the infinite realms of possibility that this mad dream state can accomplish. And I think for somebody who has taken reality so seriously, to wake up and realize in that moment it is a dream state. You know, when I'm fast asleep and I'm dreaming my dreams, my body doesn't know the difference. When I'm falling in my sleep, safely tucked up in bed, my heart pounds, my adrenaline goes out the frigging roof. It was a thought within consciousness. And we think that we have two kind of modalities of working. And no, there's only one modality of working. It's all mind. It's all consciousness. You know, the awake state and the dream state, the sleep state are just different spaces of consciousness. And when we dream in a dream of sleep, it is as real as this very moment. It's really obvious once you become aware of it. You start to become really aware. You know, of course it's a state of mind. I can look at one thing one day and it looks like X. Look at it next day, it looks like Y. Like Jen says to me, sometimes I look at you and I want to rip your clothes off. Sometimes I look at you and I just think, meh. It's like, what? That was eye-opening.
I know. My boyfriend he's as steady as a rock. I mean, I think we've been together for 11 years, but he's just unwavering. Whereas I am moody as hell. And there's those days when I wake up and I go, why am I with you? So he edits this show. He's going to hear that, but he knows that. And then there's other days when I am like, oh my God, I love you so much. And nothing has, it's such a wonderful mirror to see my own insanity, because that's all it is. It's my mood just going like that.
Absolutely.
He doesn't change. I can never blame anything on him. It's wonderful.
Deeply humbling.
Yeah, it is, exactly.
Deeply humbling thing.
Unlike my chaotic relationships in the past, it was very easy to blame the other person. This one I get to really have to cop to my own stuff. So
it was in that conversation where I really saw something. Jen and I had a conversation. We first got together, we took an awful lot of flack from the community. We got a lot of shit. It was hard work. And I remember I was really kind of getting a bit bogged down with it. And I spoke to her on a drive down south and I said, look, I've been really stressed and not feeling it. And she went, oh, you get that too? I said, yeah. Should I get that? I said, yeah. She said this, and she said, yeah, sometimes I look at you, want to rip your clothes off. She said, sometimes I look at you, just go, yeah. And she said, but you think that's got something to do with our relationship? She said, but I know it has everything to do with my mind, where I'm at in that moment. It was one of these things where you live and learn. You think you know something. I was like, you're right. I went to bed that night. I had the biggest insight. I just burst out laughing. Jen was like, what are you laughing at? I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But whatever it is, I am so in love with you. And I think I've seen many a relationship, and I've had many a relationship collapse because I have believed that my feeling of distance is a representation of a relationship and not a representation of thought. Mm-hmm. And so because I've believed it, so it has appeared. Another thing Jesus Christ would say is, it is done unto you as you believe. Such a beautiful, beautiful, I love that sentence. It is done unto you as you believe. Mm-hmm. If you believe that feeling is a representation of your relationship, yeah, it's done unto you. That's how you will experience it. That's how it will look. That's what you will come across.
You've inspired. I'm an ex-Catholic schoolgirl, so I have a little resistance towards the Bible, but you've inspired me to actually sort of, it is amazing. I mean, that phrase right there, I mean, it points to the principles right there.
He was a wise man. He was an enlightened man.
Absolutely.
Far more enlightened than I think many people claim to be enlightened. Mm-hmm. He was a man who saw with such depth. There is a beautiful thing about the mind. The principles have become quite psychological. Mm-hmm. The principles aren't the psychology. They're before psychology. Psychology is like it's an offspring of science. They come before science. They come before physics. They come before matter. They come before creation. Everything in psychology is about his creation. And it's great, it's gone into psychology, beautiful, but it's not psychology. You can't compare it to NLP, CBT, or anything like that, hypnotherapy. You can't, they're after the facts. The principles, what the principles are pointing to are the essence of life. And one of the first questions I'd love to ask people is, we're all alive, what is life? What is life? We all live. We live this mad life. Nobody denies it. What's life? Don't know. You ever thought about that question? No? Well, you should.
I'm thinking about it now. But I'm also thinking that we've come to the end of our time together. And I'm also thinking, I got to have you back on again, because this is just riveting. And I would love to continue this conversation.
I would as well, Del, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. It's been so fabulous getting to meet you, and gosh, so much wisdom in what you shared, and thank you so much.
Well, like I said, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for doing your amazing work, Del. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you. Same to you. Take care.
You too.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching and mentoring packages, please reach out to me at Adey-Jones@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you.